All right, welcome to the Medical School Index. Thanks, Steve, for being here. So Steve's one of my good friends from undergrad. We actually TA'd cell biology together with Mike. You may have heard him on a previous episode, but today we're covering Midwestern University, specifically the campus in Phoenix, Arizona, or more specifically Glendale, Arizona. Did I get any of that wrong, Steve?
You got it all exactly right. All exactly right. Except for the only part that's wrong is I TA'd with Mark. He didn't TA with me. So
that is true. I was the junior.
No, you were teaching us, man. We TA'd with you.
But yeah, so thanks again, Steve. Want to kind of dive in first with the conversation about just the area in Glendale. Obviously, Phoenix, super nice place to live, great weather. How have you liked living there? What's it like?
It's been great. Yeah, we actually have really liked it here. Obviously, like you said, the weather is brutal in the summer. Around like October, it starts cooling down, and it's pretty like unbeatable the rest of the year, which has been way nice. But this is both. Well, it's not my first time leaving from home. It's my wife's first time living away from home. And the thing that we've loved most probably about it is just the community here has been awesome. So we live like, it's a 10-minute walk to campus. And I feel like most of the students here live kind of in, I'd say like a 2 to 3 mile radius from campus. There's a lot of apartments and housing right next to it. So it's pretty cool. Just everyone's kind of piled in together. And it's a really good community because everyone's in, similar stages of life. Like if, listeners or whatever, like if they're married, my wife's made a bunch of really good friends here, which she's loved. And it's been way easier being away from home because of that. So I feel like it's been pretty awesome. Like it's a nice community. It's safe. It's pretty clean. So yeah, I mean, we've loved it so far.
That's awesome. And it's kind of a random question, but do you guys interact with any of the other medical schools in the area? I mean, there's so many medical schools in Phoenix.
Yeah, there's a lot because there's like Mayo is like 20 minutes down the road. You've got like the U of A campus, a few others. We do interact with them. I think it's mostly like I haven't had a lot of interaction with them. Third years and fourth years, I think, see them more when like you're rotating in hospitals and stuff like that. But there is like some, I wouldn't say it's like a ton though.
Okay. Sounds great. Yeah. And just to give a little context to our audience, Steve that just finished his getting you guys mixed up. Steve just finished his first year at Midwestern and he's in his summer break right now, which is nice. If you don't want to deal with the Arizona summer, you can skip it.
You can peace out, man. Yeah. Oh, man.
So tell us about like your first year. What was your kind of day-to-day schedule like?
So obviously first year, I'm sure the other people have kind of talked about this. You're just trying to get your feet wet and kind of figure out like what's going on. Because hopefully, you've developed study habits in undergrad and stuff like that. They're going to help you. But for me, med school was just a lot different. It's more intense, it's quicker, all that stuff. But so like my day to day that I finally like worked out was I would wake up, like hang out for a minute, like probably get on my phone and waste like 30 minutes to an hour and then regret it instantly. And then I'd start studying, and I would do my primary study tool was Anki. So I would just like crush Anki cards for most of the morning because I found that was like the most productive time for me to do that. And then after that, I would usually have like a lab or a workshop or something like that on campus. And then I would meet with me and one of my friends down here. His name is Mike, oddly enough, but not that Mike, a different Mike. We'd meet together and we'd go over a few lectures together that we planned to go over that day. And then that was pretty much it. I'd go home and kind of brush up on other stuff. So typically my day was like, I don't know, probably like pretty close to 8 to 5. On like a regular day. But when there was tests, obviously there was more cramming, more studying, stuff like that.
That's awesome. Sounds very doable. Were you studying a lot on the weekends or just a few hours?
Yeah. So I'd say majority of our tests land on Mondays. That's just the way the testing center here has it scheduled. So typically we'd have a test Monday morning. So that was like kind of a bummer because that means your whole weekend is pretty much just gone. So, Saturday, Sunday, you're trying to cram in for those tests. Um, but yeah, so I'd say typically a lot of the time I would study on weekends, but then I would take, Monday a little lighter, Tuesday a little lighter.
Okay. Yeah. And you're not like studying the whole day on those days, I imagine. Just a few hours.
Yeah. You mean on the weekends?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Saturday, yeah, it just depended. It depended on the test. But yeah, no, Sundays were typically pretty heavy days for me studying, unfortunately. So, which I didn't, love that. And I like usually to take Sunday off. But it definitely wasn't like all day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But you got to prepare for those tests.
Yeah, for sure. So,
and are there tests like every other week or?
Oh man, that's one thing. So Midwestern testing schedule is pretty intense. And it would depend on the week. Typically, we'd have a test a week. I know a lot of med schools do like the block schedule where it's, like you learn everything that you take a test on that, right? Like you do like all GI anatomy test, all GI physiology test. Mm-hmm. For us, we are more like, I don't know if you want to call it like the traditional whatever. And it was where we would have, so we'd have like physiology, anatomy, biochemistry, and we're learning things. Sometimes they'd overlap, but a lot of times like they wouldn't coincide as much. And so some weeks, you're having an anatomy test on Monday, and then you're having a physiology test on, Thursday, and then you've got a psych test on Friday or whatever. So typically the most we ever had was like 3 in a week, unless it was finals. But yeah, so it just kind of depended. I'd say probably like average was 1 to 2 tests a week for most of the year.
So it kind of seems like it's more typical to like what you're used to in like a university undergraduate setting.
For sure.
Which is nice, easy transition. Probably less to study for each test, but not the tradition or not like what a lot of med schools are doing now that are doing the systems based learning.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so were you watching these lectures from your school, or are you watching like outside resources, or both?
So yeah, so I should mention that as well. So they have classes like every day, and they record lecture, which is super nice. Mm-hmm. For the first part of the year, I definitely tried to go to class, and then I quickly stopped doing that. I just found, for me anyway, and I know people that would go to class every single day, whatever was happening, whatever the class was, they would be there, because for them that helped them to stay on track and to make sure they weren't falling behind, which is great. And like if that's, if that works for you, that works for you. But for me, I found that it was hard for me to feel like I was studying everything enough if I was spending that whole time in class. So they record the lectures, and for a while I watched them just on double speed, or triple speed or quadruple speed sometimes, depending on the lecture. But yeah, and then pretty quickly I just lapsed into just using the slides and the Anki decks for my study resources. So towards the end of the year, I would listen to the lectures sometime if I felt I needed to really like polish up on something. But yeah, typically I wouldn't watch them towards the end of the year. But like I said, that's what worked for me, and like not necessarily is going to work for everybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And are these classes pass fail, or are they like, is there a class rank?
We have a grading system. So it's just like undergrad, you get A's, cutoffs like a 93, the whole thing. And then you do have a class rank at the end of the year as well. So, and ours is not out yet, but I check it, twice a day to see if it is. So,
and yeah, are you ranked?
It's not the pass fail.
So I have a couple questions about like how this relates to the campus that is in Chicago, because it's the same university. But are you ranked against just your campus, or are you ranked against like students in Chicago as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how Midwestern works is you have AZCOM, which stands for the Arizona College of Osteopathic Medicine, and that falls under the umbrella of Midwestern. And then you have, I can't remember the other one, but anyway, but it's a separate, it's the same like institution, but our schools are like separated from each other. So there's like a dean over all of Midwestern. And then there's like, we have a dean here just for AZCOM. So she's the dean of AZCOM. and they have a dean over there for it's like the Chicago something. I can't remember the exact abbreviation. But anyway, so it's pretty, we don't have a ton of interaction with them. There are rotation sites for third year out there and other things like that. But yeah, we're just ranked for AZCOM. So just the 250 kids who are in my class here in Arizona are ranked against each other. And then they have their own separate ranking over there.
Okay. Okay. And the class size you said was 250.
Yes. Yeah. 250. Okay. And we take a lot of classes with the pod students, and they have like 20 to 30 kids. So it ends up being like just shy of 300 in our classes.
Okay. Awesome. And these students are, because it's a private university, are a lot of these students from all over the country, or is it mostly Arizona kids, or?
Their biggest three feeder states are Arizona, California, and Utah. So those are like the big ones. And then Chicago's not a state. Illinois is also a really big one. So those four are probably like the biggest. But yeah, I mean, there's people from all over. You know, we have kids from like Connecticut, from Las Vegas, from, you know, pretty much everywhere. A few others back east. But yeah, I'd say the majority are from those places.
From the West. Okay, awesome. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so kind of transitioning into more your clinical years. So I noticed that you can do, like you said, rotations in Chicago. There's some in California, and then also in Arizona. How are those, and maybe one other location that I'm missing, but how are those divided up, and how do you get to choose? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a lottery system. How it works is like middle of first year, I believe there's 10 sites. So there's Chicago, a rural one in Chicago. There's 2 here in Phoenix, in the Valley here in Phoenix. There's Tucson, 2 in LA, San Diego, and I'm going to miss a couple there. But anyways, what you do is they just send it out and you just rank your preferences from first to last of all the rotation sites. And then some algorithm that somebody put together who's much smarter than me figures it all out. And you're assigned your, hopefully one of your top 2 or 3 choices. So for me, we have a house here. My wife and I do. We're pretty like established. So we're like, we wanted to stay here. So I put East Valley, Phoenix, and West Valley. Phoenix were my top choices. You enter them in, goes through the lottery, and then we're in West Valley here. So, okay, so that's kind of how it works.
You know what it is prior to your second year then?
Yes. Yeah. Which is nice. And then also I should mention too, if you say you don't, and this happened to me, I didn't get my top choice. I was actually put in Tucson. You can trade with other people. So I knew one of my classmates here who his family was in Tucson. His wife's family, was in Tucson. And he wanted to be out there, but he was at East Valley. And he says, hey, look, like, do you want to trade with me? And I said, I would love that. So yeah, that's anyway, nice. So we're able to trade. So you're not like set for sure in stone, locked in. As soon as that lottery comes out, you have until like your spring of second year to be able to trade, and then it's finalized.
Okay, that works out nicely. And going into kind of the schedule, so how many breaks do you get throughout the year, and how long is this break that you're on right now?
Yeah, so this is the longest break for sure. We have the calendar is divided into quarters. And so our first quarter ends at the end of October, and then we have a week break until the next one starts. So that falls right around Halloween. And then the next break is Thanksgiving after that. And then you have Christmas break. I believe it was 2 weeks for Christmas, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And then we have like another Monday off. I think it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And then this summer break for first year, which is from whenever we got out, like May, like beginning of May to beginning of August. So it's a few months, which is really nice. And they have like a few different programs if you want to do stuff. There's like research and TA jobs on campus, things like that. But anyway, so that's how it kind of shakes out. The first quarter, there's not a lot of breaks. It's pretty much just 10 weeks straight. And then second quarter is more drawn out because you've got Thanksgiving and Christmas in the middle of it. And then your last quarter starts in February, and it's again just like pretty much 10 weeks straight out.
Okay, awesome. And then in your second year, when do you guys take step, and like when do you kind of finish all the didactic stuff so you can
Mm-hmm.
prepare for that?
So yeah, so we finish same time. So you finish May as well for second year, and then I
Mhm.
think most people take step like end of May, early June here.
Okay. And
So
then like sometime in mid-July, you start your rotations or something like that.
correct. So then it's, I believe, beginning of July for third year is when they start rotations. And then it's just like the standard, you have your, you know, your blocks and things like that. I think you still get out for Christmas and Thanksgiving. But
That's
other than
nice.
that, it's pretty much just straight up, you know, you just have your blocks and you're just grinding
Oh,
till fourth year. So
yeah, that's nice though. I definitely working this year, I've definitely realized I feel like you get more time off in school than you do in like the real world. So I actually am
yeah,
kind of looking forward to that.
yeah, it's
Um,
funny.
but that's great that man, that's such a long summer too. That's so nice. I'm kind of
Yeah,
jealous.
yeah. No, it's been really, really nice. It's hard. Like I definitely felt those 10 weeks, those last 10 weeks were, you know, it's just like anything, you know, you're going and you're grinding and you're kind of like starting to get burnt out towards the end and you're like, okay, I just got to make it 2 more weeks, then I have break, then everything will be okay. So it's been nice to like recover and take it easy for sure for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, it's nice that they have those like quarterly breaks too. Not a lot
Yeah,
of schools
for
have
sure.
that. So
For sure.
circling back to one thing that I wanted to ask about, is the anatomy at Midwestern. Is that kind of like every school does it differently? Is it like a dissection lab, or is it prosection, or models, or
Yeah, no, that's a good question because yeah, like you said, I know everyone does it differently. For us, we had 26 cadavers on campus, 26, 28. Anyway, quite a few. But obviously, you know, we have like a huge class, like 250 is a lot of kids to try and cycle through there. So what we did, how they have it divided up is you have a group of 12 students on each cadaver. And your dissection group is a group of four. And then they rotate A group of four students, B group of four students, C group of four students. And then you do dissections. So like A group, when we did, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. Like when we did the back, A group did skin dissection and like superficial fascia. And then B group did like erector spinae and, you know, like upper back, and then C group did like lower back, deep fascia, stuff like that. So anyway, so you just kind of rotate through, and then you all come together before a test. They call it GLEE, which doesn't stand for like GLEE group, but I can't remember what it stands for. And you all come together and you review your dissections with each other, and then you're expected to know like each part of everybody's dissection. But anyway, I thought it was good because you're not doing everything, but you still get to see everything, and it's good hands-on practice too.
yeah, totally. And that's, I mean, not everybody gets that experience, especially those who were in COVID.
Right.
We've
Yeah.
had a lot of people interviewed that were affected by that. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's tough. They had pro section bodies, I think, is what they did at Midwestern for
mhm.
the class ahead of us. And yeah, they were all super bummed. They're like, man, you guys are so lucky. Like, you got to do dissection. So,
uh,
anyways.
and so throughout this time that you've been there, that your first year, obviously some people don't do, some people just take their first year to kind of acclimate to school.
Mhm.
But let's talk a little bit about the extracurricular activities. Have you had the opportunity to get involved in any of those, and kind of what do you feel like the strengths are of Midwestern in terms of like research and getting involved?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good question. So, I think there are a ton of like extracurricular opportunities here at Midwestern, which is good. Most of them are like, for instance, I was in the emergency medicine club, which is really cool. They had a lot of cool activities, like they had like a suturing workshop, and they had like an intubation workshop and cool stuff like that. That, you know, first and second year you don't do like a ton of stuff like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so anyway, so there's a lot of things like that. There's like pediatric interest group and like oncology and hematology and like neurosurgery, you know, like derm, like all the specialties. There's also different, like there's a diversity and like racial inclusion club, and there's a like LGBTQ club, and there's other ones like that. I'm trying to think what else. The one thing I wish there was more of is, I know, like for instance, at the University of Utah, they have like a hiking interest group, and like a, you know, like a cycling one, and so, you know, like more recreational and like hobbyist kind of
Yeah,
clubs,
rather than just like medicine.
right?
Or
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah.
that's one thing I'd love to see more here, is, you know, some stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, but there's a few other things too. They have something called home, which is it's basically you give clinical medicine treatment to like homeless people, and you also do like education and like volunteering, stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool clubs. But yeah, I think there's room for growth there as well.
Okay, awesome. And then, so this is actually kind of cool. You're the first DO student that I've interviewed. Obviously I'm going to a DO school, so
Sure.
excited about that. Can you tell us a little bit about like what kind of the osteopathic side of it looks like, in terms of like
Yeah.
what you know, labs you have on a weekly basis for that, and how you've enjoyed that?
Sure. So yeah. So osteopathic medicine, how it goes, I feel like, is there's people that are really on board and really gung-ho about OMM treatments. And there's others who are kind of like, man, it's like whatever. Like, I'm in med school to be in med school. Like, it's fine to learn it.
Yep.
But ultimately, like, I'm just going to be a doctor, and like, I don't really care about all the other stuff.
Uh-huh.
OMM, our lab was once a week. We had it for like an hour and a half. And then we would have another lab that was more like clinical medicine based for another hour and a half. And then we'd have one lecture a week for OMM. So it ended up being like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that ended up being like a real big chunk of time that you're spending for our OMM class. And I think there's a lot of different. Can you hear my baby crying in the background?
Yeah, no worries, man.
Sounds like he's going off. Okay, sorry. Anyways, there's a lot of people, like I said, you either love it or you don't. You're like not so gung-ho about it. What I think is really awesome about OMM is you can like start treating people like pretty much instantly. So like, for example, my sister was just here visiting us this last week, and she's like, man, my neck is killing me. And I was like, oh, like, let me take a look at it. So like, we lay down and I do like a couple of techniques, and she's like, oh, that's way better. And I'm like, sweet. So stuff like that. It's cool to be able to like, you know, treat people and things like that. Will I use it in my practice? Like, I don't know, like, we'll see. But for sure, it's like, it's definitely useful in some instances. There's others where I feel like it might not be as useful, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, so yeah, does that answer your question? Sorry, I forgot the original question.
No, that's great, and that kind of goes in line with some of the things I've heard, and and I think it's super useful to, you know, just like a psychiatrist going into, or somebody going into psychiatry, maybe some of the orthopedic stuff might not be of use to them, but it makes them a more well-rounded doctor. So
yeah, for sure.
And with that, something that actually is kind of like a concern of mine is like, with it being like an extra thing that you need to learn on top of just the normal physiology, etc. It does it, like, I mean, obviously you're doing it, it's balanceable, but like, has that been a struggle at all? Like, do you feel like you're busier than your MD counterparts, or?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Obviously it's hard to say, because I don't know like what it's like to be in an MD school versus a DO school. I will say, like, it's, like I said before, it's a pretty big chunk of your time that you're in labs, that you're doing stuff like that. I don't know. Once, the thing with osteopathic medicine is, and like, there's osteopathic principles. And once you get in line with those principles and like understand them, everything becomes a lot easier. So like, for instance, like for like muscle energy, which is one of the techniques that osteopathic physicians use. It's also used by physical therapists and other people. But the principle there is you want to like stretch the muscle while they try to like go against in the other direction, you know. So if you know your anatomy, right, which you should because you're also learning your anatomy at the same time, then you can just think to yourself, okay, so if I was doing this technique and I wanted to do it on, you know, like let's say like levator scap, right, then I'd want to like extend the neck, rotate it to the left, you know, that kind of thing. So I feel like for sure it's like another thing that you're having to study, right? But it's definitely it's doable. It's not like super crazy, like strenuous. I feel like the hardest classes for me, time wise, to balance were definitely anatomy, then physiology, then biochemistry, then OMM. So I obviously it's like one more thing, but I don't think it's anything that's like gonna like blow your freaking mind, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a class. So you just deal with it.
Yeah, it's a small thing that they add on to make you more well-rounded, is the vibe I catch.
Yeah.
And you know, Midwestern is a school that's been around for, I think it's the second oldest DO school behind AT still. So obviously nationwide, a well-respected name. How does the community in Arizona receive just the school in general?
Good. Yeah, I think really good. It's cool too because Midwestern here, it's not just the DO school that's in the campus. You also have the podiatry school, which I mentioned. You have optometry, you have dentistry, you've got veterinary, and most of those have a clinic that's like right across the road where like everything's a lot less expensive. You know, it's students, so things are less expensive. They take a lot longer, but it's less expensive. And also, I feel like Midwestern does a pretty good job of like community outreach. So like I mentioned home, where there's that club where you're going out and like serving the community. There's also the dental school will do like a free dental day, and they'll do like a free pediatric dental day. And I've got a few friends here in the dentistry school that just say it's, you know, it's really cool. You've got kids coming in there and who like their parents can't afford to get it, or, you know, things like that, where it's cool to do some community outreach that way. So yeah, so I feel like overall, it's a good community, and it's like well received by the community too.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, and I figured so with Midwestern, and you know, I think this is, you know, these are things that people worry about at times, and so one of the other things that I wondered about with Midwestern is just like, and obviously you mentioned it's like a more or less health science center with, you know, dental school, pharmacy, optometry, probably others that I'm not aware of. And then so with that, like, how is research performed at Midwestern? Do you feel like you've had like strong opportunities there as well?
Yeah, no, that is the other thing. Earlier, when you asked your question, I was like, man, I'm sure I forgot something. You asked about research and I forgot about it. So I feel like there's good opportunities to do research, and there's a lot of opportunities to do research, but they don't fall in your lap really. I have had like 2 different opportunities to get involved in research projects during my first year, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And you know, they haven't like been super intense or strenuous or things like that. One of them was in partnership with a guy down at ASU. So, you know, like there's opportunities like that that are available. They have designated like things you can apply for. Like there's a big summer research scholarship for your first year, that you can do stuff like that. But, and then they have like research presentation days on campus. They have, there's quite a bit of like available research that you can get involved in, which is awesome. The faculty here are really good. That's probably one of the things that attracted me most to Midwestern is it's definitely a teach first faculty. And they institute like an open door policy, which means pretty much like if a professor is here on campus, like you can go talk to them about anything, anytime, which is really great. And it's something that I definitely like have really appreciated. And part of that is they really love having students get involved in what they're researching and what they're doing. So yeah, I think there's quite a few opportunities, but if you sit on your hands and you're like, well, I don't know, I hope I find one someday, then obviously it's going to be like a lot more difficult for you to get involved in one.
Yeah. And I think that experience is similar at any medical school. You have
For
to
sure.
take the initiative to get involved.
For sure.
Sorry if my connection was my connection cutting out there, Steve.
I think you're okay still.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
I
good.
think you
Okay.
skipped out a couple times, but I think it's been good. So
Okay, sounds good. So, in conjunction with that, I love just like dispelling these myths that people hear about different schools about, oh, you won't be able to succeed there. So it's great to hear that, and I think that's something that really helped me choose my school as well.
mhm.
Um, as we wrap up here, any other strengths that you want to let students know about Midwestern that attracted you to that, and that as you've been there, you've been surprised at, or you've been pleasantly pleased with the experience?
Um, yeah, I just like to mention for sure, faculty are great, very open, very, very willing to like talk to you. Um, I love the community also, like I said, has been really awesome. And maybe that's not unique to here, but I feel like it's something that's been really helpful for me to get adjusted to feel, kind of like at home here. Um, Other things that I think are really awesome. The campus is nice. I mean, it's like a nice place to be. It's sweet to like be outside studying, in like November. You can go outside and it's 70 degrees and it's nice
Mhm.
outside. And
Yeah.
so that's like a really big thing for me. Um, yeah, I feel like those are probably like the biggest strengths. Like I said, the biggest one for me, and I remember in my interview, I asked that question, why to the faculty, why did you choose to come to Midwestern? And almost all of them said, because this is a teach first institution. We care about the students. We try to like help you guys succeed. And for the most part, again, like there's always going to be exceptions, right? Faculty that maybe you don't get along with or things like that. But definitely I'd say the majority, and I'd say like the overwhelming majority, definitely want students to be successful, definitely are looking out for the students, wanting to like change, adapt, help us be better. So I think that's probably the thing I appreciate most about Midwestern.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's I mean, I've always heard it's one of the better schools. It's a place where you
Mhm.
can succeed. Do you guys um have any lectures from the Chicago campus like that are recorded from there, or is it everything done through the Arizona campus?
Not really. So yeah, almost like all of our lectures for like our classes are from faculty here on campus. So I think it's Rocky Vista does that. They have like people from um, Colorado, like lecturing in St. George, like via telecast or whatever. But here
Uh-huh.
it's not like so. All the faculty, everything is on campus. So, like I
Uh-huh.
said, we don't have like a super ton of interaction with them. Occasionally, there'll be like events where, say, like the PEDS program is having an event, and there's like a faculty over there that gives like a really good lecture. So they'll include like the PEDS club here, the PEDS club there. They like collaborate and do like a Zoom call, something like that. So occasionally there'll be that, but for the most part, I'd say it's just here, Arizona, like lectures and all that stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Last question I have for you. Are there scholarship opportunities for many students at Midwestern?
Yeah, I, man, freaking scholarships. So this is the one thing that's definitely a big downside of Midwestern is it is expensive, like
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and there's no obviously, like you said, it's a private institution. And so there's no break of like, oh, after a year you get residency and then your tuition, goes down by 40%. It's going to be, 70, 76, like, and, like each year, obviously, like it increases like everywhere else. But like, you're just shy of $80,000 a year, which is, it's a lot of money. There are some scholarships, not a ton, I wouldn't say. But they have like work study, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that you can do. But yeah, there are definitely some, but it's not like an overwhelming amount where you're like, oh, right
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's the same
on.
at every school for the most part.
Mhm.
Some schools like Wash U are unique in that they provide like all of their student scholarships, it seems.
It's pretty sweet.
Um, but yeah, no, very typical. So that makes sense. Just wanted, I don't know, some people are interested in that, but
Yeah, for sure.
overall, just one of the best schools in the country. It seems like, especially in the DO world. And thanks so much, Steve. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to add?
No, I mean, yeah, it's a good school like any other. It has its flaws. I'd say if you're considering it, versus other schools, important things that I remember considering is what's it like where I'm going to live, what kind of resources do they give their students, and then most importantly, I would look at residency placement, because one thing I wish I would have cared more about, and like Midwestern has really good like match rates. They have like good residency placements, but if you're set on like, say, I don't know, a competitive specialty like derm or radiology or surgery or things like that, definitely look at residency placements for like how your school does in those areas.
Yeah.
um
Are there any like, something that I've noticed about my school is like there are certain competitive residency
mhm.
areas that they like, because sometimes the way people paint it, they're like, oh, like, like if you're going to a DO school, you may end up in primary care, like it
Right.
almost like they've painted your future, but some schools are very strong in certain competitive areas. Like I
Mhm.
know my school does really well in orthopedics or in urology or in dermatology year to
Cool.
year, but
Yeah, that's
maybe
cool.
not as much in ophthalmology. It at least it
Right.
appears by the match year to year.
Right. And that's, I don't know, that's probably pretty common to most DO schools. I think, oh, I try to remember. I was seeing if I could pull it up real quick. I think it's roughly like 60% of graduates from Midwestern either go into family practice or internal medicine. And then there's like a pretty good chunk that go into emergency medicine each year, which is what I'm interested in. There's like a decent chunk that go into like general surgery. But yeah, very, very rare for anybody to come out like optho here. Very rare for um, derm. We actually just had a kid match derm last year, and I think there's another one who will be this next year. Injury, stuff like that. So I just feel like, yeah, it definitely depends. The majority of DO grads, I feel like, go into either internal medicine, pediatrics, family practice, and that's just kind of the way it is. And that also is like one of the things that like osteopathic medicine schools were like established to do, is kind of fill that gap where, because if you look at medicine as a whole right now, that's one thing that's like pretty glaring, is there's a big need for primary care physicians. So
Yeah,
anyways.
absolutely. I think it provides a great opportunity to become a doctor and in a much needed area. And
Mhm.
I think it's
Yeah.
awesome personally. So
Yeah, no, it's cool. And there's a lot of people who, it's hard because, like I said, it's expensive. People are like, well, I don't want to go into that because you make less, things like that. So I mean, you have to consider all those things, but ultimately, like, you just have to do what you love. So if you think it'd be awesome to be a family practice doctor, that's awesome. Go do it, and it'll be great. You'll help a lot of people. So
totally, totally. Well, Steve, thanks so much.
yeah, dude,
It's
thanks for having me.
been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You're awesome, man. Keep keep going, dude. I'm excited for you to start school, and you'll be here before you know it, and you'll be like, man, everything that guy said was wrong. Like, he just had no idea what was going on in first year.